So today we're really diving deep into what it actually means to follow Jesus.
Right.
And, we've got some really fascinating sources here that I think are going to help us unpack,
Mhm.
all of the kind of the demands and the rewards. And
Mhm.
I guess our mission today is to really, go beyond just kind of that surface level understanding and
Mhm.
really grasp what it means to walk this path.
Yeah, I think that's key. And what I find so interesting right off the bat is how these sources differentiate between
Yeah.
just culturally identifying as a Christian
Right.
versus actually living as a disciple.
Right.
It's not just what you believe, it's a
Yeah.
whole different way of life.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's a perfect segue into, Luke chapter 9, verse 23,
Oh
which
yeah.
is really central to this whole idea of discipleship. Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross daily and follow me.
Right.
And I think that the deny themselves piece is so interesting because one of our sources actually, contrasts this with a more and just purely like self-punishing kind of view
Right.
and suggest that it's less about deprivation and more about aligning your deepest desires with a greater purpose.
Hmm. That's that's a really critical distinction. And I think it's more about
Yeah.
a daily reprioritization,
Yeah.
recognizing that our will isn't the only thing or even the ultimate thing.
Right.
And then that idea of the daily cross, that daily cross that we're called to take up,
Yeah.
I think that symbolizes those ongoing challenges and sacrifices that come with choosing that alignment.
Right.
You're
Yeah.
constantly choosing something beyond yourself.
It's so active.
It is incredibly active.
It's not passive at all. It's not just,
Not at all.
believing certain things. It's like,
Right.
okay, what am I actually going to do about it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think our sources do a really fantastic job of bringing this to life.
Right.
With, the story of the calling of the first disciples,
Right.
Matthew chapter 4,
Yes.
Peter, Andrew, James, and John, these were established guys,
They had jobs.
working men. They had livelihoods. And when Jesus called them, they left it all
Immediately.
immediately. They didn't hesitate or,
Yeah.
hem and haw or wait around to see what their friends and family would think.
Let me get back to you on that one.
Yeah, exactly. They left their nets, their boats, even their families in a very real sense.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's a really important point, because it's not just about, abandoning material possessions.
Yeah.
It's about being willing to prioritize your relationship with Jesus
Absolutely.
above all else. And for a lot of us today, that can be a really hard thing to even imagine.
It's so challenging to think about that kind of radical surrender.
Yeah, we have jobs and families and, all these responsibilities. And that's something that our sources acknowledge.
Yeah.
They talk about, the reality of persecution and struggles. Yes, that
Come with following Jesus.
for sure. But alongside that, I think it's important to remember that the sources also consistently point to a deep joy that comes
Yeah.
with following him.
Yeah, there's this real sense of it's not about the absence of difficulty,
Right.
but it's about this underlying deep inner peace.
Yeah, this profound sense of meaning that, that anchors us even when things are tough.
Yeah.
It's like a joy rooted in something so much bigger than ourselves.
Yeah, it's not circumstantial.
Right.
It's not based on what's going on around you.
Exactly.
It's something deeper.
Absolutely. And, for those listening who might be struggling with, fully committing to following Jesus,
Yeah.
our sources really emphasize that it's worth it.
They do. They're like, it's always worth it.
Always worth it. Why do you think they keep saying that?
Well, I think the worth that they're talking about, it's about the transformation that happens within us. You grow as a person, you gain a deeper understanding of life's purpose, and your relationship with Jesus deepens
Yeah.
through both the good times and the bad.
It's about becoming more like him.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's where that lasting fulfillment comes from.
Yeah. So I think what we're seeing here is that, following Jesus, it's an active daily commitment.
It is.
And it's something that's illustrated so powerfully by, both scripture and the example of those first disciples.
And even though it might be difficult and there will be struggles,
Yeah.
there's also a deep and abiding joy that comes with it.
That's right. And as we kind of wrap up this deep dive, here's something I want you to consider.
Okay.
Our sources remind us that while Jesus didn't promise an easy life, he did promise his presence.
Mm-hmm.
So what does it mean for you to really rely on that promise,
Right.
that presence of Jesus in the midst of your own circumstances?
That's a great question.
It's something to really think about
Yeah.
and to hold on to as you go throughout your day.
I love that.
Okay, well, that's it for this deep dive. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for having me.